Okay, I'd like to share with you one of my favorite recycled instruments that I've made so far. So, this was not in the plans, and everything just happened because I had the right pieces of materials, and everything just came together. And it's actually a kind of drum that I've been wanting to have for a long time, and I made my own out of recycled materials. And I'll definitely be using this for a lot of things for practice at home, but also probably for some gigs and jam sessions in the future. So this is it. And let me tell you about it. So it's made out of PVC. PVC, a very big coupling that would be used for water drainage. And it's very heavy. It's a little heavy, but it's tapered at the top. The top diameter is 10 inches, and the bottom diameter is some weird fraction, like maybe 10 and a half or 10 and 3/4 of an inch, or something weird like that. So they don't make drum heads in that size. I was originally thinking about actually putting a real drum head on this, but I couldn't figure out the best way to attach it. And then I made these big bass drums out of cardboard tubes. This one's painted silver, and this one still has its original cardboard look to it. So those are big cardboard tubes that I made some big bass drums out of. And one of these cardboard tubes had a top and a bottom. Well, they both did, but one of them was made out of this plywood or press board. It's very kind of cheaply made, quickly made plywood, but that was perfect. That was exactly what I needed. I needed something that wasn't going to be too thick or too hard to cut because I don't have any power tools. I'm doing all this by hand. And yeah, this is perfect. So I decided I would make what we call a cajon out of this PVC. Now, usually, so cajon means box in Spanish, and usually you think of the cajones, if you're a percussionist or a musician, you think of the cajones as the big boxes that you sit on, and sometimes they have snares in them, wires or string that makes kind of a buzzy sound like a snare drum. So those would, I'm not really familiar with the whole culture of those cajones, but we have flamenco cajones and Peruvian cajones, and there's cajones in many different places, and they're very musical and can be used in a lot of different settings. They're very fun to play, and they're pretty big usually, and you can sit on them and use them as a bass drum or a snare or any combination thereof. So I made this one. The top is this wood, which I spent a long time sanding and getting just right. It has a nice edge, very comfortable on the hands. And I put some epoxy. I epoxied it to the snare, to the PVC, and put a few coats of clear coat on top. I didn't want to get into staining or oils at this point, just because of I wanted to use what I had here. And maybe about 5 coats of clear coat, sanding in between each one, and just a regular layer without sanding at the end. And so on the bottom, we have styrofoam. So actually in my yard, there's a little area that kind of collects junk sometimes. And I found a big styrofoam cooler that had very thick styrofoam. And styrofoam is a great resonator, a great resonant material. It can resonate very well. It can also mute, depending on how you use it. But the styrofoam in the bottom helps resonate the tone. And I played around with it a little bit. It's epoxied in here. I treated it with acrylic paint and a layer of resin epoxy. on it. So it's a little hard, a little bit more durable. It won't just crumble apart or break. And I played around with it a little bit, keeping the whole piece without the hole in it. And that sounded pretty good, but what happens when you cut the hole in it, the bass comes out and the tone comes out a little bit more. It has a fuller sound to it. So think about a kick drum, a bass drum for a drum set. A lot of times you'll see a hole cut into it. And the reasons, well, there are a couple reasons. One is you can get a microphone inside to get a really good mic sound, but also it makes it come out, the bass sound, the bass note come out a little bit more, the bass tone come out a little bit more rounder, fuller sound. So rock and roll drummers love the hole in their kick drum. Jazz drummers, they might tune a little higher and they might not want that boom. So sometimes jazz drummers don't cut the hole. They like to have it ring a little bit more, a little bit more ringy. Anyway, so that's why I did that. So without this, the drum was okay. It was okay, but it didn't have a full tone to it. It didn't really have the note that you're about to hear that comes out of this drum. It was just kind of flat, like playing on a table or a bucket, just a regular bucket. So there wasn't anything super special about the sound at that point. But once I did this, it got really good. So cajones, we talked about cajones, big box. So in Cuba, this is the tradition of cajones that I know more about. Rumba is a rhythm and folklore dance, rhythm, songs, whole folkloric tradition from Cuba called rumba. And it began in Matanzas, where the dock workers would unload the ships. The ships were carrying imported fish, like cod or some other kinds of fish that were not available in the area. And the fish were packed in large crates, wooden crates. Well, some were large and some were smaller. And the dock workers in Matanzas would take breaks and have jam sessions on these boxes. So I call it a cajon de rumba from that tradition. So let's see what it sounds like. So with the hole, we get a really nice bass. Whoo, boom, like a pretty good note there. The tones are good and it's loud. So, cajon de rumba, PVC. Pretty cool. I'm very excited about this one. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Trying to learn about lights and maybe need to get a new phone or something sometime. But thanks for watching these very dark and wordy, geeky videos about recycled instruments. Don't throw it away. You can make music with anything. All right. Have fun.